Hi everyone, I'm Gina Doyle and I'm the product designer for Verify Pipeline Insights and Runner. Today I'm going to walk through the results of a UX scorecard I recently carried out for Review Apps, and it's part of the Pipeline Insights group. To give a little background, so the testing group was rebranded to Pipeline Insights recently, and we also shifted around some of our categories. So instead of having I think we had 5 or 6 categories before. We've consolidated them. So now Review Apps is its own category and it has usability testing underneath it. I mentioned that because the UX scorecard process involves selecting a job to be done to conduct the evaluation around. And when we did that, we had a few to select from, but we ended up selecting when reviewing a user interface change before a software is released. I want to reduce unexpected negative impacts to the end user so we can retain usability while releasing changes. That was the first step that we took in the UX scorecard process. And then after that, you have to create an experience map of the process of the scenario and tasks that you carry out. And to do this, we use Mural to document the tasks, emotions, pains, and opportunities throughout the scenario. And then finally, you carry out the evaluation depending on the scenario and tasks that are at hand and score the experience. There's a couple different evaluation methods that you can pick from. For this one, I use the heuristic evaluation rather than user testing. And then you score it using the grading rubric, and that allows you to rate the overall experience. There's a lot more documentation we have in our handbook to learn more about this if you're interested. So specifically around this scorecard, I was evaluating Review Apps, and I attached the issue in the slide, and I'll put it in the comments of this video as well so you can look at it. But that issue contains all of the more detailed information than what I'm going over today. So the persona that we were focused on was Sasha, the software developer. For the job, I already stated that in the last slide. And the reason why we're doing this in general is because Review Apps is a highly used feature in our group and at GitLab. And for the Pipeline Insights group in general, it has a ton of issues associated with it. Probably Review Apps and Artifacts have the most amount of issues for our group. So like I said, we had moved around some categories, and now that Review Apps is more high level one rather than usability testing, we wanted to concentrate and focus on improving the experience there. We know and we've heard that users are struggling with some aspects of the feature, so we wanted to evaluate the experience since we haven't done that so far and identify any gaps, and then we can create a vision to move towards when striving to move up in maturity, which we're shooting for Lovable next. I added a link to the epic that we have around moving Review Apps to Lovable, and that contains a bunch of different issues that we've been capturing that we think will allow us to get to the next level. The scorecard details are also documented in the issue that I linked, but the scenario that I was going for was you are a front-end developer who is responsible for developing and testing new features and successfully pushing them to production. To enable yourself and teammates to easily review new UI features, you need an environment to see and review the new changes before it goes to production. This should help reduce any bugs and undesired or unexpected behavior before users interact with it. The tasks to complete the scenario were to set up a review app for your project by configuring an environment to deploy changes to. There was no specific application you needed to use here. You can pick and choose what you like. I ended up using Surge and Gatsby. Then create an MR with a simple UI update on the homepage or whatever page that triggers the review app, review the update and make any changes necessary to obtain the expected features, and then merge the MR. So before this, I had done some setup tasks to be able to set up a project to use on GitLab.com. So I ended up setting up a project that was a public project, and I used a previous Review Apps project that our group had created that shows how to use Surge and Gatsby so that I could set myself up to complete these tasks. So I'm gonna just show you some of the things that came about. This is the issue that I've been referencing the whole time that contains more data around and details around the scenario and tasks and all that. And then here's an overview of the mural, which is the experience map, which shows how my emotions changed over time throughout the scenario. And as you can see, the part that I struggled with the most was the configuration of the review app. And I think that will differ highly depending on what you're using. So I struggled a lot because I was troubleshooting with Surge and I had never used that. But then once you're past that step, it's pretty easy going after that. And the experience is actually really good. I would say there's still some things that we could take opportunities to make better, but it was still great. I'm going to show you the project that I used. So when I was going through this, I was mainly looking at the environments page. It was nice that there was an enable review app here. And some of this, there's a couple bugs in this modal, but this actually kind of walked me through the experience pretty well. And then once you're done with that, the one thing that I missed was that you had to have an environment created before you could enable the review app. And I would have expected that to be like sort of the process here that you had to follow. This documentation was deprecated, so maybe that was the process and it just didn't show up in there. But anyway, so it took me a little bit to get that. So once I had an environment set up and pointed to my Surge static site, I went ahead and created a merge request just to update some of the files that I had for my site, which are now merged. But to show you an example, this updated some of the pages that I had, and in the merge request widget right here, there was an attachment that said, gave me status of my review app. So it told me if it was deploying, if it was ready to go, and then when I could view it. And that was awesome. I also added review app routes to my configuration, and that points out every page that you update and allows you to go straight, like gives you a direct URL to go straight and view those changes. So that was also great to see and really easy for me to check out my new changes. So I'll hop back and tell you about the experience score that I graded this at. I said it was a B because it meets expectations, but it doesn't necessarily exceed user needs. You're able to reach the goal and complete the job. So the highlights that I kind of just went through as well was the enable review app is highlighted in environments, which makes it really easy to get started. You receive constant status of the review app progress when a change is committed. And then review app routes makes it super easy to find where changes were made. The low lights were, there were a couple bugs in the enable review app, and the template code isn't really the best thing to use, I don't think, because there's so many changing variables depending on what your site is like. And I'm not sure if it really gives a great template to use. I think the other thing is that there's no way of validating that the review app script contains no errors. So maybe if there was a way to do that as pipelines do today with the YAML file, that would be really helpful just to troubleshoot early on before you even make the changes. To summarize the experience and then give next steps. So there's some opportunities that we can capitalize on. It gives us a sense of where we are at today because we've never scored this before. It identifies gaps that need to be solved to be able to get to lovable status. And then it also helps us come up with a vision that we want to work towards. So our next steps are to create recommendation issues, which I've already started, and I'll be linking from this part 1 issue. And then prioritize issues for review apps. So we have, like I was saying in the beginning, a number of issues that are related to review apps that there's just so many, and this should help us really prioritize which of those features are needed and when we should get to them. And that's it. If you have any feedback, I'm welcome to hear it, and please leave some comments in the issues that I link. Thank you.